Welcome to the Sherry Andrea Psychic Empath Show with your host, Sherry Andrea. Sherry Andrea brings her listeners interesting discussions and topics related to empathy, psychic and spiritual development, as well as energy work. She is herself a psychic empath, healer, coach, author, and founder of SherryAndrea.com. Welcome, and here is your host, Sherry Andrea.
Hi. Thank you for joining me today, or rather for listening. I appreciate you taking the time, as always. I hope you had a really good week, depending on when you are listening. I hope you had a really good day. The topic today that I wanted to talk about is awakening to empathy and other abilities. Often I use the term awakening, and when I use that term, of course, I could mean awakening to anything. What I'm actually trying to say is the beginning, that point in time where you realize that there was more to your reality than you previously thought. A time when possibly things changed for you in a huge way. Sometimes an awakening actually is an awakening follows something very dramatic in your life. It's not uncommon for people to talk about having an awakening, and before that awakening, or what led to that awakening, was a depression, or something very dramatic that happened to them. Maybe they had an accident where they had, to them, it was a near-death experience, or possibly they had a health issue that they had to have taken care of, and it was very major, and there was that potential, that percentage, that chance of mortality being jeopardized. So that's what I mean by awakening. Really, when I speak of awakening, to be fair, I'm not speaking about awakening spiritually or specifically awakening to abilities. I'm talking about awakening, any type of awakening where something has made you realize that maybe things aren't as you always thought they were. That could be possibly awakening to one new truth that you feel drastically changed your belief system. And it could be anything, really. But also when I'm talking about an awakening, I am speaking about a beginning. An awakening really actually, we're not talking instantaneous, although there is instantaneous enlightenment. So it is possible to have an awakening in a sense, in a way where you are not only awakening, but you're awakening and it's instantaneous enlightenment. That does happen, and it is possible. But most of the time when I'm speaking of awakening, I'm speaking of that beginning, that first time you realize that life as you knew it may not be so. And so it began. And then the awakening wasn't just one moment in time. An awakening is a process. An awakening just doesn't happen. So when somebody says, like if I say I awakened in 2007, I don't mean it was a specific event that happened in 2007 and bam, I'm awakened. No. Awakenings do not happen like that. Awakenings are gradual. I'm not saying that they're always slow. For everyone it's different. But what I'm saying is it's a process where you begin And then you, over time, which may be a short amount of time or a long amount of time, you awaken to some point of great clarity. Now, if I really wanted to be technical, I could say that awakening, technically, that would mean an awakening never really ends until you get to that moment in time where you finally experience 100% enlightenment. So I could really be referring to an awakening spanning almost a whole lifetime. So if, say, you began awakening in your 20s and you ended up on a spiritual path consciously, you achieved enlightenment in your 50s or 60s, that could literally mean that for the majority of your life you were going through an awakening. Well, I get lots of questions that are related to people that have empathy that is awakening within them, or another ability that seems to be manifesting just suddenly and for no explainable reason. This ability is coming to the surface. And often people want to know from me why. Basically, what's the reason? Why am I going through this? Why did it happen if I've done nothing to make it happen? And it's funny, but I've tried to explain this so many times, and it seems that there are no words that adequately express the reason why. Because really, it is as simple as you can't forever cover up your true self. Your true self can't forever be covered up. Who you are, you were born as your true self, and that true self was covered up based on environmental factors. You know, we've all heard about the nature versus nurture. Well, your parents helped to cover up who you truly were. Your environment in general helped to cover up who you truly were. Truth that you were given, that you believed, helped to cover up who you truly were. I mean, quite simply, if as a child you, like my son, asked the question, do we die? Depending on what the answer you were given by your parents can greatly shape your belief system and how you think reality really is. I mean, my son, I think, originally asked that question 2 or 3 years ago. I answered, and then my father answered. My father answered with that simple, well, yes, of course, we all die, and you're going to die one day, too. Of course, you all know me. I didn't answer that way. I said, well, yes and no. Yes, it appears so, but actually the truth is we don't die. We just leave this body because the body only works for a short period of time, but we continue to live, we continue to exist. Well, of course, that's quite difficult to put in a way that a 5, 6, or 7-year-old is going to understand. I mean, there really are, again, there are no words that make that understandable to a child that young. However, even so, not a good excuse and reason to tell what is actually a non-truth. To simply say, yes, we die, and we all die, and you're going to die too. That's an easy answer. Easy answer, easy for a child that age and that young to understand. But is there ever a good reason to give somebody something that's going to be a part of their belief system that isn't true, and that will in fact affect their reality and what they believe their reality is, that will start them off to living part of their life seeing an illusion? Well, of course, you may not think it that important because we are talking 5, 6, or 7-year-olds, so it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Well, actually, it is that big of a deal. The truth may be hard to explain, but always, there is never a good reason to not tell the truth, to not stand in the truth, no matter how difficult the explanation could be, no matter how confusing the explanation could be, because it shapes a person. So, when we were born clear. We were born without a belief system, you could say. We were like a clean slate. And so gradually, that clean slate was filled. Depending on what it was filled with and the experiences, some good, some really bad, depending on what experiences that we had, or rather, what experiences we suffered, shaped us greatly. So when you're thinking, why am I awakening to this when I've done nothing consciously? Why is this happening? It was there all along. That was your true self. That's who you were born. You were born a clean slate. There was something underneath before it got covered up. Actually, we should be very happy and we should rejoice in the fact that without any effort from us or intervention from us, it came to the surface. I mean, it kind of sounds like a blessing to me. It kind of sounds like something that we should be happy that we didn't have to work to make happen. That we were lucky that without us doing anything, without us even knowing there was anything underneath, it came to the surface. How wonderful, right? But most people don't feel that way. They don't embrace it that way. Why? The true self is really, really hard to embrace sometimes. Because sometimes the true self comes along with things like learning you're an empath, clairvoyant abilities that scare you and maybe completely and totally go against everything you've been taught and told in church. I mean, these experiences that go along with awakening can be really harsh on us because they can greatly be so opposite everything that we've been told and everything that we believe in and known to be true our whole lives. So then we end up being at the point where we're questioning it. We don't understand, why is this happening to us? Well, first of all, and this is going to sound kind of harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway because I kind of feel like I'd rather say it and come off sounding harsh than not say it, because I feel that for anyone to hear it, it would benefit you. First of all, it's very easy as human beings for us to play the victim role. Don't fall into that trap of playing the victim role. You are so great and so awesome. There is way more to you than you've been told and than you realize. This is your awakening, and if you're having to send me an email and ask the question, why is this happening? Why is empathy developing? Why is clairsentience developing? Why is it all of a sudden I can do these things? Why is it that all of a sudden I go to pick up spoons and they bend in my hand? Why is it that I walk under a street lamp and they go out? These things that freak us out and that scare us, actually, they're little hints. You could think of them, little hints and little signs. Little signs that you are somebody who is so much more and so much greater than you've been told you are. These are signs that should make you go, maybe there's more to me. Maybe there is more to humans than we've been led to believe. don't fall into playing the victim role of the why me. Because if you do that, you will spend precious time playing that victim role for months, for weeks, for months, for maybe even years, for decades even. Don't fall into that trap, because that's when people end up getting stuck. That's where people end up one day they end up getting on a spiritual path consciously, and then they go, oh, I'm kind of stuck. Well, for a lot of us, no wonder we got stuck. We spent so much time at the beginning just not understanding why it was even happening to us. Some of us, and I've had this discussion with many people, we almost kind of feel like this thing we've been given, why do we deserve it? I have to admit that when, I found out about my path and my purpose, I was almost kind of embarrassed, because I almost felt like I wasn't, why would it be me that would do this, like what would make me worthy, and I remember telling someone that I realized that the problem is that all my life I had thought myself average. I mean, it's true. I had, and a lot of us have experienced this. We may have had a talent for some things, maybe a talent for art, maybe a talent for sports. But for the most part, we identified with being average. Maybe we did average in school. Maybe as far as our friendships that we developed, the things that we did, the experiences that we had, they were average. The way people identified with us, they didn't act towards us or treat us like we were anything special. They treated us average. Then we grew up. We had good jobs. I mean, we weren't president. We weren't even president maybe of a company. Even the jobs we held, maybe we considered it average. Maybe even the good salaries that we had, making 40, 50, 60 or thousand or more a year. Maybe we still considered us doing okay, as in an average sort of way. And so that's why I said, I told a friend one time that I really felt that the problem was that most of my life I considered myself average. Now I'm supposed to believe that I'm like this person with this purpose that seems way, way huger than my own self. Well, many of us have that problem. We look at what when we realize what our purpose is and what we're meant to do, or we realize that we have these abilities that are just coming out on their own, and then we realize that we've had them all our life. It's just that maybe we were kind of closed off, and so they weren't manifesting in a big way. But we many of us have a hard time seeing ourselves as more than we have our whole lives, basically, is what I'm saying. And so then we kind of fall into that why me trap. And you don't want to fall into the why me trap. You don't want to waste a lot of time doing the why me, or, in either way, why me as in why was I blessed with this, or why me as in, oh my goodness, why am I being tortured? But many times when it comes to abilities like empathy and clairsentience, people do tend to say, I don't understand. Why is this developing when I haven't done anything? And how am I supposed to make sense of this? Most of the time when I get those questions, the answer that really I need to give is one that you would end up finding as you develop, as you do self-work and you are developing, as you go along. There are some things that we learn, over time of working on ourselves. And one of the things that we learn, one of the lessons, is the lesson of acceptance. a lot of times what I see more than anything that the person that asked that question needs, and I remember, I'm not just speaking of this from outside myself, I'm also speaking in terms of myself as well in what I went through when I awakened to empathy and clairsentience. What I needed more than anything is acceptance. And when I finally took a step back and I took the time to just exist and just accept life for what it was, myself for what I was, suddenly things got a lot easier. You know, life got a lot nicer. I got a lot happier. Sometimes that's exactly what we need to do, is simply learn acceptance. And also to learn some truths. Knowledge is power. If you understood who your true self was all along, of course, you would never question, why is this happening to me? Because, of course, you would then understand who your true self was, and that your true self was just covered up, and now it's coming to the surface. It's an illusion. You know, and it's the difference between the illusion and the reality. How it appears. It appears, what does the true self appear to be to you? Well, the true self might appear to be who you've been all your life. But what if you then realize that that was never your true self all along? Well, that's a big pill to swallow, is what I'm saying. And that if you're asking the why me, there's no answer that I'm going to be able to give you that, like, overnight is going to satisfactorily answer that question for you. It actually is going to be answered and accepted by yourself over a period of time, because you're going to have to really live with the truth for a little while for that answer to be an adequate answer for you, to make a difference for you. Because basically what I've just said, I just answered the question for you, is that you never realized your whole life who your real true self was. The true self that you thought you were never was. Whoever you thought you were, forget about it. That's not who you were. Whoever you identified yourself, however you identified yourself, in whatever way you identified yourself, forget about it. You're going to find that it was just an illusion. That's the best way to think of it, is that, let's say, for example, we have two balls. Say one is a beach ball, and let's say one is a basketball, but they're the same size. And I got a blanket. And I told you to turn your back, and that I was going to hide one of them under the blanket. Now keep in mind, they're both the same size. So I hid one under the blanket, and I said, okay, turn around. Which one is under the blanket? Well, it kind of looks the same from the outside. I mean, from the outside, you wouldn't be able to tell. But maybe you are absolutely, totally convinced it's the basketball. And what if I didn't uncover it for quite a long time? And I told you, you know what, come back in 10 years. In 10 years, I'm going to uncover it, and I'm going to let you see the truth. But you were convinced it was the basketball. So you walked away and you lived for the next 10 years believing that it was the basketball. And then you came back 10 years later and I uncovered it, and lo and behold, it was the beach ball. Well, that's basically what we're undoing. We're uncovering the truth. You know, who you were all along, but you just didn't realize it. just because you didn't realize it doesn't make it wrong. We have a tendency as humans to, excuse me, if we don't understand something, or if something is totally new to us, or if it's something that falls outside of our belief system, we have a tendency to want to discredit it. I mean, we've seen it before for things that cannot be seen. Metaphysical, metaphysics are things that cannot be proven in any way, as far as scientific way. So metaphysics is hard because you're asking people to believe things that they can't see. They don't have any way to prove. Things you're pulling out of, it seems, thin air. Well, people have a tendency to want to not believe or discredit or shy away from or be scared of things that they don't believe or rather don't understand. For example, if you're the only one, like I'm adopted, so I'm the only one that I know of in my family who is, I always say it this way, who is like me. But, I've talked to many different people. Most people who are with their biological families, there tends to be other people in their family who identify with these abilities that are awakening, who they can talk to, who at least won't look at them and not believe who they say they are. So, believe me, I know the face of people who turn a blind eye to things that can't be seen, can't be touched, can't be proven. I've seen how, the reaction is. I've seen the reaction. I've seen the behavior. So, for most people it's very tough. This is not empathy, clairsentience. This is not something they want to awaken to. Even, their spirituality. As I worked more and more and deeper on my spirituality, many things started to happen, unexplainable things. So, don't think that just because it's not psychic abilities that I'm talking about, that it would make it easier. It doesn't. People who suffer the stigmata, same thing. They're not talking about psychic abilities, but still they're talking about something that people aren't that familiar with. It's not proven. No one knows why it happens, how it happens. People tend to shy away from, go up against, or totally discredit what they cannot believe. So I say all that to say that I understand why many people are like, tell me why this is happening to me. Because they know the road that they're getting ready to go down and what they have to face and how difficult it's going to be and how alone they're going to feel. They're already thinking all those things and more. So I totally understand that. But do yourself a favor. Be in acceptance of it. Accept what's happening as just, your true self is coming to the surface. And that is something that should be celebrated and that you should feel happy for. Well, I'm going to end this recording here. And I thank you for listening. I hope that it helped you. Of course, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to email me. I don't really give, and I want to say this, because I've been getting an awful lot of emails, people wanting me to do more readings for them. So some of you are sending me birth dates and your sign and everything. First of all, I don't do astrological readings. There are people who specialize in that. I've never studied that. I've never studied numerology, so I don't actually do numerology readings as far as you give me your birthday and I do a reading off of it, or a natal chart or anything like that. I am more of who I am is I am a coach and I am a teacher. I mainly, where I can help most often is with helping people understand the abilities they have awakening and manifesting, where I can help guide people and point people in the right direction when they're, whether it's developing psychic abilities or whether it's, working on their spiritual advancement. But I'm more of a teacher, a guide, a mentor. So I do readings every now and then, but usually the readings I do are usually related to that. If I have time, if somebody asks me for a reading that has something to do with, that's completely off, and away from what I normally do. If I have time, I'll do it, but you have to understand that sometimes these things take time. And to be perfectly honest, I have gotten probably thousands of emails requesting readings, and I actually, it's not very often that, I get even a $1 donation. And sometimes even just to do an interpretation of a dream could take me hours. So that's why, if I have the time, I'll do it. If I don't, I still try to answer it. I still try to, just ask some, basic questions of my higher self so that maybe I could at least help, give you some answers, point you in the, right direction, even if I can't do a full-blown reading. So, but, if you feel that you are in need of a reading, full-blown reading for some reason, there are a lot of people out there that are really, really good. And they can be found easily. I mean, I can't tell you any, but sometimes it helps, if this is related to your psychic abilities you're developing yourself. Sometimes it helps to join a forum because, then you get a mixture of, we're mixing education and psychic readings. And when I say psychic reading, I don't mean actual full-blown psychic reading. I mean, we may be answering a response to a question, and part of it we tell you what we've learned, and then part of it our higher self comes through and gives information. So often the information comes through mixed. Often you're told, I usually tell people, when my higher self is coming through in a really, really huge way, because usually I feel like, okay, if my higher self is really coming through in a huge way, and I feel like I'm being pushed to say something or tell you something, I'll let you know that, because it must be important for you to hear. But anyway, sometimes, it's a good idea, if it's related to developing psychic abilities or spiritual advancement, ascension, enlightenment, it's usually a good idea, if you go and you join my forum, because you're not only getting an answer to a question from one person, you're going to get a take from several people, and it's based on the actual experiences that they've had. So generally, there's usually someone there who's had your exact experience, or who has been through exactly what you're going through and you're experiencing. So feel free to visit my forum. You can get to the forum from my website. You'll see on the menu, there's a link that says forum. And so if you go to SherryAndrea.com, that's SherryAndrea.com, and then click on the link for the forum, that'll take you to the forum. The forum's really nice. Everybody there is really awesome. When I have the time, I'm active on the forum. And then, of course, during those times when I'm busy and I don't have a lot of time for the forum, still people will email me if there's something like, if it's something specifically related to like, empathy or clairsentience, with them knowing that those are my strongest abilities. Usually they'll email me if they have a question that they specifically want me to answer if, I've been busy and I haven't been around. But go there, join, check it out. I think you'll find it wonderful. You'll find that there are some amazingly wonderful people there with awesome abilities to help others and to guide others. Not only with their knowledge, but also with, of course, their abilities to communicate with spirit. So I thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful morning, noon, or night, whatever time it is there. And I look forward to you the next time we have a discussion. Until next time.